Welcome to Mishna study Masechet Shabbat, Perek Aleph Mishnah Gimel. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about things that you cannot do on Friday afternoons because we worry that you may come to violate Shabbat. So we're going to start with things on Friday afternoon. Right, the Hayat tailor can't go outside. Right, Friday afternoon, close to Shabbat, next, almost sundown. We can't go outside with his needle that he would sew, right, that he would tailor with, because he may go out on Shabbat itself. Right, and then he's carrying on Shabbat. Right, carrying on Shabbat is an av melachat, it's a deoraita law, and we're so concerned that we don't allow someone to even this tailor to go outside with his needle even before Shabbat if it's close to sundown. The lavlar is a sofer, scribe. He can't go out with his kulmos. The kulmos is his literally his pen that he used to write with. Right, it'll be made from bamboo. Right, Sfaradim still use it with the bamboo today. The bamboo, and you write the sofer right, or a quill. Some people use, a lot of Ashkenazim, they use like a feather. Right, but you can't go out with this kulmos. Right, erev Shabbat. Right, because a person may come to violate Shabbat. A person can't go ahead and check his clothing for lice near a candle. Right? Nor could he read next to a flame. Why? Because we worry that you may be looking, and you may want to just tilt the candle a little more just so you get a better look. You're not allowed to tilt the candle on Shabbat because that's considered mavir. Yeah, that's considered kindling a flame. That would be asur. Be'emet, really, right? Every time we say be'emet, it's halachah Moshe Sinai, right? Categorically, right? This is something that there's no reference to in the Pesukim in the Torah, but it's a law that we know that something was either asur or mutar, and it's tradition from Moshe at Sinai. Hazan could go ahead and see where the children are reading, but he cannot read himself. Right, the Hazani would be someone who would teach the kids how to read, reading, Sefer, Ta'amim, reading correctly. So he's allowed to go ahead and point, start reading over here, by the Ber Hashem and Moshe, right? It's, a couple of words, 2-3 words. He's allowed to go ahead and read for them, right? But he's not allowed to go ahead and actually read. They could read, the children could read. Why could they read? Because emato alav, right? The ema, the fear, right, or the awe of the Hazan, the teacher. They're not going to go ahead and tilt the candle if he's there, right? But for him, he's not scared of the kids, and he may go ahead and do so. So we worry that he may tilt the candle, and therefore he's not allowed to read, like everyone else who's not allowed to read. That's part of the gezerah. Lo yikra lo oranya. Kayotzebo, similarly, right? It's interesting why we need this language. Kayotzebo, similarly, lo yochal zav im hazava. The zav, right? Someone who had a man who had an emission, right? A specific type of emission that would be tameh for. It's a high level tumah. He can't eat with a zava, right? A zava is also a woman who had, she had, like similar like nida, right? Just nida. Nida blood is at a specific time during the menstrual cycle. Zava is a little later, right? So it's not when she was necessarily expecting it during the menstrual cycle, but she also saw blood, and she was considered a zava. Right, similar to an ida. They're not allowed to go ahead and eat together. The zav, even if his wife is a zava, right, they're both tameh, right? They're not allowed to go ahead and eat together because they may come, to roll into an avira, right? Because we don't want, him to have a certain lust for her, and if they sleep together, there's an isur karet, right? Even if one of them is a zav or a zava, right? If a person sleeps with his wife as zava, that's an isur karet. Even if he's a zav and they're both tameh, so we still have to distance them and separate them. So we also have this gezerah as well. Now, right? Okay, so that's what we have so far in our Mishnah, and the Mishnah continues. Right, most other areas have it broken up into the next Mishnah, and that's how I broke it up over here. But we'll get to it in a second, and we'll continue in a moment. So, according to Harambam, why is all this brought over here? Because these are gezerot, right? These are certain laws that apply to every, to a certain time period that we mentioned earlier. Now, what happened? What happened exactly that we made these laws, right? If you counted, there's actually 18 laws that we just mentioned. There's 18 laws that there was a time period in history when there was a special person. His name was Hananiah ben Haskiah ben Garon. And He was someone very unique. He was one of the greatest hachamim of the Dor in his day. And the hachamim were discussing about not including Yehezkel in the Tanakh. They wanted to remove it. They wanted to be Gonez Sefer Yehezkel. This can't be. We can't have Sefer Yehezkel anymore. Why? Because some of the Pesukim over there contradicted Pesukim in the Torah. Right? They say a Kohen, can't marry an almana. Only a Kohen Gadol can marry an almana. Why only Kohen? So this is one unique, specific case. But there were so many Pesukim that actually contradicted the Torah. And Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Garon, he sat there. And he used to sit there with oil, and he was writing a perush to really solve all these contradictions. And the Hachamim, they would come visit him pretty often. And they would come visit him. And one day, when they came to visit him, right, the students of Shammai, the students of Hillel, they were all there, and they saw that there were more students of Shammai from Bet Shammai than Bet Hillel. So, okay, let's call a vote. We finally have the majority. It's Hanei Lahatot. So they call a vote for certain things. And we'll see, right? We'll see that the Gemara actually brings down that there were 18 things on that day, right, where Bet Shammai overrode Bet Hillel, and there were certain gezerot that were codified on that day. Okay? Firstly, there were 18 things that they agreed to. And that was the first 3 Mishnah that we mentioned now in Masechet, right? Everything that we mentioned until now, right? The 8 things of carrying on Shabbat, right, that we mentioned before, right? Those are the first 8, right? Then a person can't sit in front of the barber, right? He can't go into the merchatz. He can't go into the tanning area. He can't judge. He can't eat. He can't. The hayat, the tailor, can't go out. Right. The 15th one is the sofer, the lavlar, and then you can't check your clothing for lice, and you can't read the Or Haner. Those are 18. Those are 18 things where Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel agreed, right, on that day. They agreed on these 18 things. Now there's another 18 things that they did not agree to. They did not agree on at all. Right? What are these 18 that they didn't agree with? Okay, so Hanambam lists it over here. He said, I'm not going to explain it, so I'm not going to explain it either, but I'll tell you what they are quickly because Hanambam also, mentioned what they are. And that is if a person eats ochel rishon, eats something that's a first level tumah, right? So anything that he touches while the food's in his mouth becomes tameh. Ochel, if a person eats something that's food that's shenida tumah, same thing, right? If he touches truma, the truma becomes posel truma. The third category of person is drinking something, right? Drinking liquids that are tameh, right? Or a person goes roshov rubo, most of his body maim shu'uvim, right? It's considered also tameh. Right? For a certain reason, we'll see why. Right? If the person takes a shower right after went to the mikveh, it's considered tameh. Right? Or if a person actually was tahor and it's a regular water, 3 lugim of water fell on top of his head, also tameh. The 6th one is a person, something nogia b'sefer. If you have teruma that touches a sefer Torah, the teruma becomes tameh. Right? We'll see. The reason for this also, they actually wanted to keep the teruma near the sefer Torah because they wanted to keep the teruma tahor, so they kept it all stored in the Aron Kodesh with the sefer Torah. And what happened? There were rats, mice would come and they would peck up the sefer Torah. And they would ruin the sefer Torah. So Chaim say, no. Anytime the sefer Torah touches teruma, the teruma is going to become tameh. Yadayim, stam yadayim, shniyot la tumah. Regular hands are considered second level tumah. The eighth thing is ochalim and kilim. Right? We'll see. Foods and kilim could also can become tameh from liquids. Right? Or if a person puts a miniach kli tahat hatzino, puts something underneath a pipe, will also become tameh. Kol metaltlim uvin tumah, ovi mardia. Any type of tumah can be transferred with the ovi, with the width of a mardia, with the cattle prod, even though it's not necessarily a tepach wide. Right? Even so, that would also bring tumah. That's a gezerah, right? Or a botzela gatuchshar, if a person's actually going ahead and taking things for picking grapes, right? And a little grape juice falls on it. Even though he doesn't want that grape juice, it's still going to be enough to make the grapes susceptible to becoming tameh. The 12th one is gidulat truma. If a person plants truma, the truma is considered also truma. What grows from it is considered truma. If a person is mishich shich baderech, is the 13th, the person is going on the road. Shabbat rolls in. What does he do? He has his wallet on him. So there's actually ways for him to go ahead and carry 4 amot at a time, less than 4 amot at a time, because I'm worried he's not going to just want to leave his wallet on the street. The next one is pat goyim, right? The bread of goyim, shimanam, right? Their olive oil, yanam, right? All these are gezerot, and yichud benotehem, actually having yichud with their daughters. And the last one, right? It's also asur, even though they're not true. There's still is asur of yichud. And the tinok goy mitameh b'ziva. If you have a goy tinok, it also actually makes everything tameh with ziva. Okay. Now there's another 8. So that's the second category of 18. So the first are the first 18 that we mentioned that everyone agrees to, according to Harambam, right? Baratuna, by the way, explains this very differently. Harambam says there's 18 that we agree to. That's the first 18 that we mentioned now in Mishnayot. There's another 18 that Bet Shammai overpowered Bet Hillel, right? Because they had the majority, and those are 18 that are mentioned in the Gemara, right? None of them are mentioned over here in the Mishnah. And then there's another 18, a third set of 18, and that's going to be from the next Mishnah onward. And Rambam counts them over here. I'm not going to count them. You can look over here to see how you want to, if you want to understand which the 18 are, but it's going to really carry us to the end of this perek. Now, we just return to the end of the Mishnah. What's kayotzebo? What does that mean? Kayotzebo, similarly. What's similarly? How is it similar to anything we mentioned? So Rambam says, you know what? It's really not similar. The reason we said similarly is because everything else was so similar to each other. This one is a little bit more removed. So we say similarly to tell you that it's really not as similar, right? It's it's in Dimyon Kukah Hazak. It's not as similar, so that's why we have to say, similarly to mention that this is also one of those 18. Or he brings another way you can understand it, and that is because the other ones, the first batch, you couldn't say similarly when you mentioned the first cases of the the ones with the time frame. Lo Yitzeh Hayat Mahato, right? Because over there, okay, it's not similar to the laws of Shabbat, right? But over here, this you could really say similarly because it's also a gezerah. Okay, that really sums up this Mishnah. Rambam's second half, really quickly in the next Mishnah, but he really has it as a really part of this Mishnah, but we broke it up into two over here.